Hi, welcome back. Hope you're all good. I've set up my action cam here pointing at a clean surface that I will do the work. I'm going to take the bearings apart, 100% apart. I'm going to take the ball bearings out of the center raceway cage, take everything apart and clean every single piece, the cage, the raceway and each little ball bearing individually. So without further ado, let's get cleaning. Okay, just to show you removing my wheels and bearings, and I just thought I'd back up what I said in the video by saying that these nuts are done up as tight as they will possibly go, and that's literally as tight as they will go. I can't get them any tighter than that. And they still spin freely. So I just wanted to back that up. So I'm doing them now. I'll show you just removing the bearings. And one thing I'll say while I'm doing this actually, some people find that their wheel nuts loosen themselves over time, and that just means you need to replace them. Inside the edge of the nut there's a nylon plastic grip. They're called nylock nuts because the nylon should lock the nut in place. After multiple removals, you know, putting on and removing, that plastic wears out and becomes useless, and so at that point your wheels will start coming loose. So you just need to replace those nuts. You can buy them online from skate stores. I'll put a link in the description if you like, help you find them. Okay, so after the nut there should be a speed washer. Very tiny thin little washer. Again, there should be one on the outside and one on the inside as well. Sometimes it's down on the truck, there it is. Sometimes it sticks to the inside of the bearing, so just want to be careful you don't drop and lose them. But you should have one of those on either side, on the inside and outside of the bearings. That's really important. I'm going to leave that one on there. I'm going to remove this bearing. This is not an ideal thing to do, not ideal way to remove the bearings, but they can handle a certain amount of a lateral force, so I'm going to do it this way. You can buy proper bearing pullers, but I'm old school and this is just how I do it. So if you put the bearing shaft onto the axle just enough to get to the inside of the bearing, so put it on about, I don't know, about 8mm, a bit less. Put it to one angle and they should just pop like that. There you go. So you see the spacer came out. So that's the bearing and the spacer. So the spacer stacks on the bearing. It basically spaces away on the inner core there. So that's one out. And I take the other one out. So there you go, that's out. So do all four wheels. You'll have two bearings in each wheel, a spacer and two speed washers. Okay, let's start the cleaning. Right, so when I clean my bearings, I also take the opportunity to clean the speed washers as well. So an old piece of rag, and you can just either put it between two pieces of rag or just try and grab hold of it and just clean it up. Just old remnants of oil and dust. Just clean everything, no reason not to. Okay, so those are clean. The spacer's already clean, but you can always give it a quick wipe to make sure. Back of the nut as well. Okay, those bits we don't need again. The wheel is probably in need of a clean as well, so yeah, just run around that inside edge, just that bearing pocket, clean that out, because why not, you know. So let's get on to the bearings. So what I need to start with is just a small craft knife, and what we're going to do actually to start with, just so that your hands can be as clean as possible, let's just clean the bearing on the outside as much as we can, because otherwise your hands are going to get filthy. That's a bit better. So I'll do one at a time. For the video I'm just going to show you cleaning one bearing, but it's obviously just a rinse and repeat, so just do it over and over again 8 times and you'll know what to do. So these bearings have got a kind of plastic rubber race inside them, and that's basically what spaces out the ball bearings from each other and keeps them in a properly spaced formation. And that inner race is made of like a plasticky rubber, and you just need to pop that out, and so you can get a blade in there and just pop the edge of it from the back. There we go, just get the edge up. It's a little bit fiddly, but eventually you'll get an edge come up like that, and just keep going around. You'll dig it out. You want to be a little bit careful of what you do to the sharp edges here, these pieces, and this piece here, because you don't want to damage those really, because that's where the bearing's got to sit. So just prise it from one side, but eventually you'll get it come out like that, and you'll see that the bearings then begin to be able to flop around quite freely. So first thing, I'll clean that a little bit, but we're going to clean it properly after. And what you can actually do is go to the sink and scrub it with an old toothbrush. I find that a good way of doing it. But I'll just get the majority of the muck off to begin with. And you see how all the dirt has got inside on all these edges. I mean, originally it was this orange plastic, obviously all round, but you can see the dirt on the inner edges here, and that is what is running against the bearing. So the bearings are sitting in here rolling around, so that dirt is what you want to remove. So scrubbing them with an old toothbrush until they become very shiny, clean and new is the ultimate goal. So that's the race ring. As you can see at the moment, the bearings are still fairly evenly spaced, and it still runs like a normal bearing, although a little bit kind of rattly. To split this open and get the ball bearings out, obviously you want to be on a surface. I like to use a towel or a piece of carpet or something, because when these come out they have the potential to roll all over the floor, so be careful. But what you want to do is roll all the bearings round together to one area, and that then gives you a free position to be able to push the center out, and you can see it already begins to tilt. See that tilting there? So all you need to do is continue pushing very lightly, and you'll see that the ball bearings begin to pop out. There you go, you're free. At this point you might be scared thinking, okay, that's a bit worrying that they come apart very easily. How do I get them back together again? Don't worry, we'll get there. But to begin with, what you want to do is just clean the inside of the bearing race, just with a towel or cloth, until you can see that it's shiny. You don't need to put any water on this or anything. The inside race should be very shiny, because that's what the ball bearings are rolling in. If there's rust in there, you're going to probably have a pretty tough time getting them as good as new. You can try polishing it with some metal polish, try to polish the rust out of it, but if it's pitted and rusty, you're probably going to have to replace your bearings anyway. But you can do the best job possible and see how it goes. But you should be able to clean this completely dry, not put any kind of substance on there. You could put some oil on there if you want, just to help lubricate while you clean it, but they don't need to be wet, and don't bother putting any water on it, because obviously rust. So a dry clean of that, a dry clean of the center core as well, and this is more likely to be covered in crap, but very quickly, if you just use a dry cloth, very quickly you'll be cleaning it up. Again, you don't need to put any kind of cleaning fluid or lubricant or anything on there, if it's just, you know, completely dry and a dry cloth, you'll get it to how it needs to be with no dirt on there. It's completely fine. So that's that bit done. The ball bearings, you can do the same thing, literally between a piece of cloth, and just squeeze them with your fingers and they'll be shiny. So clean all the ball bearings to the point where you can't see any dirt on them anymore. There we go. So that's all of the metal parts clean now, and I'm just gonna go and give this a scrub with an old toothbrush and see how that comes out. Okay, I'm just at the kitchen sink here, and I'm just got my trusty toothbrush, my old toothbrush here, and what I'm going to do is just leave the tap running and start to scrub the inner race of the bearing with my toothbrush. Don't need to put any soap or anything on there. Maybe you want to if you got some particularly stubborn dirt. Just get it completely clean so there's no more black marks on that orange plastic, and you'll be good to go. Okay, back from the sink, cleaning this up under the tap with the toothbrush. It's looking pretty good. What you need to do now is just make sure you get every single last little bit of water dry. So if there's any water left behind, that could rust your bearings. So that looks dry now. Those bits that you can see that are kind of reflecting and looking a bit shiny maybe, that's just the plastic shining. There's no water in there left. So that's dry. So there we go. That's a bearing completely clean. Now the reassembly, and this is the bit that is potentially a bit of a nightmare. Might actually cause some frustration and fear, but don't worry, it'll all come good in the end. Just don't panic. What you want to do is drop the ball bearings down into the setup there. So put the core in and the ring around the outside, drop the ball bearings in there and just kind of move them around a little bit, and they should kind of settle down. You might get the odd one sticking up like here, and you can just poke it down with your knife. And what you want to do is kind of promote the bearings to this area by putting a bit of force in the direction of where they are, but keeping everything flat on the surface so that the bearings don't fall out. And slowly but surely, by doing that, you'll get everything back in line again. There we go. Look how easy that was. So you're not running around chasing ball bearings off the floor. Just be very gentle, slow, methodical, take your time, and it will just pop into place. So what we need to do now is get this cage back in, and you need each bearing sitting in one of those little cutouts like that. So with these bearings, on the outer edge they've got the laser engraving of Bronson Speed Co Raw written on them. So I know that I need to put my cage in from the other side where it's not marked up. So the thing I find easy to do is try and space them out as best you can and get the first couple seated in the right place. So I'm going to just push down perhaps the first one. So choose one and look at the curvature of the inner and just push it down in there. And I should have got that just about right, and yes I have. See, that one there is landed in the right place. Actually that one there and that one there are lined up good as well, so that's good. This one here needs kind of shimmying along a little bit. This one looks like it's lining up good. This one back that way a bit, and this one just move it down. And just very gently push on the back as you go around, and they should just plonk into place. There we go. We're in there. That's in. Coming around to the last one. And there we go. Oop. Now you might find, which is happening here, as I go round, the opposite side is popping out. It's a bit like trying to put a bike tyre back on. As you go around, the other side pops out. So when they're kind of in line and together, you can go with 2 fingers from both sides and just pop that last bit in like that. And we are done. And this is a good opportunity to show you the tolerances here. They're pretty loose. As you can tell, that was quite easy to remove and put back together again. And that's because, look at the tolerances here. Really loose. So these are low tolerances compared to machine bearings. I'll just get that NMB bearing again. So this is very high tolerances here, and there's no movement there. It's solid, and it doesn't spin well because it's full of grease, and the shield covers are steel as well, but there's no wobble there. So if these were on a skateboard, the wheels would not rattle, but they would not be as fast either, because the tolerances are so tight, because they're made for high-speed machining, and machining is done at accuracy. And if you're running at high speed, like machine speed, and your bearings don't have tight tolerances, they're going to shake themselves apart. On a skateboard, that's not so necessary, so the tolerances can be way lower. They'll make a noise and rattle more, but people like that about these Bronsons, and that might be what they talk about the audible speed technology. They're just low tolerance, so they rattle, but people know you're coming, so it's a thing. But these spin freely, and they are basically now as good as new. What I will do is just apply a little bit of my light machine oil. There's a drip. 1, 2, 3. That's all you need, just a drip. 3 drips. And then grab your fingers and look, silent. That light machine oil is the perfect lubricant. Just keep spinning it around like this, and this will spread out that machine oil as much as needed. That will spread it out, and they're good to go. So what I'd like to do at this point is just go around with a cloth just to soak up any excess of the oil. And they are quite literally as good as new. Okay, so that's 1. Another 7 more to do, and we can reassemble the wheels. So I'll get on and do another one, perhaps reassemble the wheels and just show them spinning, and that's job done. Okay, so here we go, reassembly back on the board. So I've got my 2 clean bearings, 2 speed washers, the spacer and the nut. So the wheel, first thing I'm going to do is put the first bearing on round the wrong way onto the axle and push the wheel on top, push it down nice and firm. There we go, so when you lift it off, it's round the right way in the back of the wheel. The open section of the bearings face outwards, and then what I'm going to do is put the second bearing on round the wrong way, and the spacer. Do the same again, flip the wheel over there. Push it down, make sure it's nicely seated, flip it over and do the same again just to completely make sure. Okay, that's seated properly. Now speed washer, wheel, speed washer and the nut, and then tighten it down. That's it. So tighten it down till it won't go any tighter. And that's it. There's a little bit of movement there, but that's just the tolerance in the bearing, like I was explaining before. But the nut is as tight as it will go, and the bearings spin great. So that's it, job done. Hopefully you found that interesting and useful, how to clean Bronson RAW bearings. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like if you like the video, and subscribe would be good, then you get to see more videos. Cheers.